She was Shoto's undercover mission as the second place winner of the UA sports tournament. But falling in love with her was against his lifelong goal of being the #1 hero. The MHA timeline will be expanded for this fanfic. Season 1 to 3 is Shoto's first year in UA, and Seasons 4 to End of War is his second year in UA. Book 1. He Says, She Says. Watch out! Kazumi pushed a kid who ran past her to catch his ball that rolled on the street. The little boy hastily crossed the road, totally disregarding the red pedestrian light. Kazumi didn't think twice. She ran and pushed him out of the street. And as she heard the loud screech of the vehicle brakes, she thought that was her end. She tightly closed her eyes and waited for the impact. She felt the vehicle hit her, but to her surprise, she was not thrown out. In fact, it felt like a person just heavily bumped into her. She did get off balance and hit the ground. She opened her eyes and found herself face to face with the front bumper of a truck. And then she shivered. She got confused on why it had gotten cold all of a sudden. It was springtime on May, but it felt like winter.
Are you hurt at all?
The truck still hit you. Do you feel any pain? A boy with blue and gray eyes stared and cradled her as she sat on the ground. For a moment, she was hypnotized by his eyes. Even in the quirk era, she seldom met a person that had two colored eyes. And oh, what a cliché to think that she had died, gone to heaven, and was now being welcomed by an angel. But that was how she truly felt. Nobody had ever been this close to her. His hands were warm in the sudden winter-like cold. She could feel heat from his hands penetrate the long-sleeved hoodie she was wearing. His touch may be warm, but his voice was cold and monotone. His words were the memorized and by-the-book first 8 questions required to be asked from any accident victim. And before she could reply anything, other people had rushed towards the scene. "Hey boy, are you okay?" they yelled. Kazumi scratched her head and stood up slowly. Yes, I'm fine." She fixed her cap and her hoodie to cover her face. She was returned to reality when people called her boy. That was what she was aiming for anyway, to be mistaken for someone else. Her dress code of cap, sneakers, loose jeans, oversized shirt and hoodie really made her look like a boy. She even dyed her silver hair to red, making it match her red eyes, and cut it to a pixie bob length to add to the illusion. So far, she had been very successful with it. Is the little kid okay?" she asked, and found him crying on the sidewalk together with his mom. They both looked shocked, but other than that, he was fine. She returned her gaze at the boy who still held her arms, probably making sure that she won't collapse. He towered her now that he was already standing. She finally noticed that his right arm had remnants of icicles in it, and a part of the truck was covered with ice. "So that's why it's cold," she thought. "And it is most likely his quirk that made the ice to stop the truck from hitting me." People started to gather in the area. She didn't want to attract attention, so without a word, she grabbed her backpack. When she pulled it, she felt a small tension, like it was trapped on something. So she tugged a bit harder and heard something tear. But she finally got it free. She then started to squeeze herself out from the crowd. "I'm back!" she yelled as she entered the back door of the flower store that she was working for as a delivery boy. "What took you so long?" The lady who was her legal guardian and also an employee in the flower shop yelled. She took Kazumi in as her dependent, let her sleep in the shop, and sign on her paper for her 3-year homeschool requirements for high school. In return, she demanded 70% of whatever Kazumi earned from delivering flowers for the store owner. Kazumi didn't mind the setup. She was glad that her guardian was not personally interested in her. She does not even read the papers that she would ask her to sign, so it meant less questions and less attachment to the woman. My bike broke down, so I had to walk all the way back. Her bike did not break down, but her left elbow felt really bruised from the truck accident, and she could not really bend it safely to ride the bike. But there was no need telling her that. It will only cause her guardian stress, thinking she would need some days off from work, thus a deduction from her income. Kazumi went straight to the logbook to fill out all her successful deliveries, then went to her space under the stairs going to the storage room. Inside, she sat on the floor and took out her bed table. It was one of the very first things she bought when she got to Tokyo early that year. She wanted to be able to do her homeworks in the most proper way that she could afford. Despite being always on the run, she made sure to prioritize education. She may have been brought up in the streets, but her mother drummed into her head the importance of graduating so she could live a comfortable and quiet adult life. However, she was not going to do any homework for now. Instead, she pulled out from her backpack a small metal box where she put some of her core memories. She was about to put a tiny rock she picked up on the accident side when she saw a small cloth stuck in the zipper of her bag. Her eyes widened as she realized that was why her bag felt trapped earlier. But at the same time, she giggled, realizing that she tore a part of his shirt. I hope he's not mad about it, she thought. She smiled because she got a better souvenir of that day rather than just having a stone. She daydreamed a bit as she held the torn cloth. His eyes were gray and blue, his hair white and red, his hands were cold and warm. Today, I finally met my future husband. She closed her metal box with a loud thud and laughed at her use of future husband because she knew how absurd it was. When she aimed for a simple, quiet life in the future, it literally meant simple and quiet because she will be alone. She could not be with anyone because that will just complicate things. She bowed and dropped her head on the table. Doesn't even know I'm a girl. And even if he did, with the way he looked, smartly dressed, refined language, he would not give me a second glance. She stood up and made a twirl, holding the tips of her oversized hoodie, pretending it was a gown. She looked at the glass window for the blurred reflection of her. That was the closest to a mirror that she had. She sighed again and laughed sarcastically. It was the first time she fantasized about the boy. There was no space for things like that in her life. As far as she could remember, all she did was run away with her mother who had a crazy grandfather. So crazy that he wanted his grand and great-granddaughter dead. As soon as her mother realized this, she packed her things and ran for her life, bringing with her the 1-year-old Kazumi. First, they lived with friends, and then with friends of friends, and then with just mere acquaintances, and then finally with strangers. It was her mom who cut her hair into a boy's length and dyed it red when she was a toddler, hoping it would help put her grandfather off track. Hey! The list of deliveries for tomorrow is on the reception area. Make sure to arrange the flowers tonight and send them out in the morning. Her guardian knocked on her door, interrupting her thoughts. Yes, I'll do it. I'll just finish my schoolwork, she replied. She kept her metal box of memories and brought out her homeworks. After a week, Kazumi found herself running down the flight of stairs to catch the train that will be leaving in a few seconds. The train doors were already closing, and some of the people in line had already started backing away to wait for the next train. But she was decided she could make it. She ran past them saying "excuse me" multiple times.
Excuse me, I'm Sorry, excuse me.
She felt bad as she knew she stepped on a foot or two along the way, but she was running late. She successfully swept in sideways to the closing train doors. She even felt the doors touch the bouquet of flowers that she was about to deliver. Whew, that was close. She breathed out. As the door finally locked, she turned to look at the glass doors and her eyes widened. Her future husband was looking straight at her from the outside. As the train started to move, she could not help but lean on the glass. She twisted her head and looked at him until he was far away already. She could not tell if he remembered her. He was looking back at her, but his eyes did not show any emotion. Wow, who would have thought I will see him again? Kazumi was really not expecting that. Oh no, was his foot one of my victims? She thought as she closed her eyes with embarrassment. The next station was the last for that rail, so he would definitely be going down there as well. Kazumi decided to wait. Well, so much for catching the first train, only to wait for the second one, she thought. But she had not said thank you yet when he saved her, and now she needed to apologize too if she indeed stepped on his shoe. After a few minutes, the next train finally arrived. He was standing on the same area as she was standing on at the previous train. He is so prim and proper, she thought. He was walking with his back straight and chin facing towards the exit door. He seemed disinterested with all the people around him, so now she was having second thoughts if she actually stepped on him. Oh well, might as well apologize for his shirt and thank him for saving her. As soon as he got out of the train, she approached him. When she bowed to say thank you, her eyes went straight to his white shoe, where one of it definitely had a shoe stain from her. I am so sorry for earlier. Wait, I can clean it, she said with panic on her voice. She hurriedly rummaged her backpack. Fortunately, she brought with her today her shoe cleaning brushes, which she used earlier when she serviced one of her alley neighbors. She dropped on her knees to brush his white canvas shoe. It's okay, you don't have to, her future husband started. To her haste, she mistakenly used the rag for polishing black leather shoes, and his white sneaker got dirtier than it was. She covered her mouth in horror. Oh my, I'm so sorry, she said. She heard him sigh in annoyance. I said it's okay, he said as he tried to lift her up by her left elbow. Ah! Kazumi moaned. Her bruised left elbow had not fully healed yet from the truck accident a week ago.
What's wrong?
You did not have your arm checked? It's been a week, he said in disbelief. Kazumi felt like a child being scolded by her teacher. Well, it got a lot better since last week, so I just need to give it another week or two, then it's gonna be back to normal, she said. He sighed again, but his annoyance seemed to be on something else this time. To her surprise, he apologized.
Apologies.
I was not able to stop the truck on time. He did not sound apologetic though. He sounded more like he was giving an incident report. But still, Kazumi could not believe her ears. Are you crazy? If it weren't for you, I would be a pancake by now. I'm not crazy. Maybe you're the one who's crazy, bringing up pancakes when we are discussing about the accident last week, he replied. Huh? Kazumi seemed confused with his reaction. She stared at him and he looked seriously confused. Is this guy for real? Seeing his innocently confused face, she indulged him with an explanation. I didn't mean it as you being wacky crazy. I only meant to say that apologizing to me should be the last thing in your head right now, because you saved me. And if not for you, then the truck would have really hit me and flattened me like a pancake. Ah, so you were thanking me? He asked. Kazumi gave a small laugh at how he did not even flinch when saying that. But it did not sound boastful either. Yes, I was thanking you. And I'm sorry for just saying it now. I should have said it right after you saved me. Kazumi heard her phone ring. It was the flower shop. She was already late for her delivery. And as much as she wanted to stay, she had to run now if she didn't want to be reprimanded later and get a cut on her pay. I need to go. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I hope I could pay you back someday. Somehow. She waved and sprinted away. Oh, and I'm sorry about your torn shirt and your shoe as well. Wait, you dropped this. Her future husband gave her the card for the flower. Apparently, it came off from the bouquet when she slid inside the train. Oh, you really are a savior. Thank you again.
June of the same year.
Kazumi just finished her flower delivery and was leaving Fujiya Hospital. She always made this her last stop as she liked talking to one of the patients to whom she regularly delivered flowers to. She had her head bent as she reviewed the list of deliveries for tomorrow. She wanted to know her workload so she could adjust her time for her home study. She was too busy looking at her list and biting the last portion of her onigiri when she accidentally bumped into someone. The remaining onigiri, which she bathed with soy sauce, came flying at the other person's chest. I am so sorry. She took out a napkin from her pocket and started wiping the person's shirt. But the small soy sauce stain only spread more. It's you again, the person said with a tone of accusation. She slowly lifted her head and stared at her future husband's eyes. He looked emotionless as usual, but his eyes really showed annoyance. Didn't you know that eating is highly discouraged while walking in public spaces? He told her. You are right, but I haven't eaten breakfast and it's noontime already, she tried to explain. Then wake up earlier.
You were woefully unprepared.
He didn't look mad and he was not yelling. He was very calm, but Kazumi felt the reprimand. So instead, she tried to lighten the mood by saying, Okay, got that. But look, my elbow is healed. Kazumi made some dance moves that required twisting her elbows. You see? She beamed at him proudly. He said nothing and just kept his face straight. Anyway, see you, Kazumi said back. She pouted as she walked towards the opposite direction. He's so stony. My dad steps never failed to make anyone laugh, she told herself as she did the same hand waving dance again, walking out from the hospital. For the coming weeks, they would most often run into each other in the hospital lobby. It had been a body clock for Kazumi to leave Fujiya Hospital at noon because that's the time her future husband comes in. They never talked to each other, but Kazumi would wait for him by the lobby. Then once she sees him, she would stare until he sees her and then smile wildly at him. Then she would do a couple of comic backsteps to show him that he was on a safe distance from her, and that she will not cause him another wardrobe disaster. He would never smile back though, but it was enough for Kazumi. It completed her day whenever she saw him. And she didn't get offended by it. At this point, she somehow understood that he was just like that, a bit on the awkward side and quite an introvert. By mid August, her list of deliveries had gotten longer. Another hospital had been added to her assignment, which also required her to change her routinal route. And no matter how much she tried to bike fast and or catch the earliest train, she would always finish in the later afternoon. Not enough time to go back to Fujiya Hospital to catch him. She frowned, as this had been the third week already, and most likely this new route of hers was going to stick. As she was unlocking her bike from the stand, rain started to fall. She lifted her face to catch it. She loved rain, and this started to lift her mood. She rode her bike in the rain. She didn't take out her raincoat anymore. She allowed herself to get wet. She was enjoying the cool breeze of the rain when a car honked at her. She realized that she was already outside the bike lane. Sorry! She raised her hand and bowed her head as an apology. She then maneuvered her bike back in the proper lane. But the car honked again. She gestured her hand for him to go ahead of her. Again, the car honked, this time a bit aggressively. So Kazumi finally yelled back, "What is your problem?" It was a black car and the driver pointed at his back. His passenger was her future husband. "Could you pull over?" The driver yelled as his voice almost got drowned by the pouring of the rain. She was surprised to see him, to say the least. She pulled over at the nearest bike stop. His car parked in front of her. He went out with a black umbrella. He then said something to his driver and the car drove off. He walked towards her and covered her with his umbrella. "Don't you have a raincoat?" he asked. "I do," she answered. "Then why?" Instead of replying, Kazumi decided to be spontaneous and took his umbrella and closed it. Now they were both being drenched under the rain. "What?" Kazumi smiled at him and said, "Just enjoy it." She got down from her bike and started walking. "Come on." He was bewildered and looking annoyed again when she closed his umbrella. But he started to walk beside her. After a few blocks, Kazumi noticed he looked like he was relaxing and was starting to enjoy the rain already. In fact, he looked like he had forgotten she was there. "You do this every time it rains?" He finally talked when the rain mellowed down and they were walking along an alley. "Nah, it's just more worth it if it's raining cats and dogs like today." "Cats and dogs?"
Wait, what are you talking about?
She smiled at his confusion and instantly explained. For a smart-looking guy, he really was kinda not used to figures of speech like this. "Yeah, it means it's a downpour of rain." "Then why say it's raining cats and dogs?" "Well, there are many theories about its origin. One is a bit gory about cat and dog corpse falling from the roof during heavy rains, so people attribute it as such. Another is mythological, saying that cats are gods that can influence the storm, and that dogs are symbols of winds." Kazumi started to babble. She was a wide reader and could really go on with stuff like this. Since she could not have many friends, she made books her companion. "Oh, I'm sorry. I have a tendency to talk nonstop, especially on boring stuff." She suddenly stopped talking. "It's not boring." She doesn't know what to make of his comment. His voice sounded bored, but he did look interested when she was explaining. He really was fascinating, she thought. He could be such a dork and yet look so cool. Like his two-tone look, he could be both of something opposite. They continued to walk until the rain finally stopped. "You know, we've never really introduced ourselves to each other," Kazumi said. "My name is..." "Wait!" She raised both her hands to stop him from talking. "What? Is this another one of the word games?" he asked. Kazumi chuckled. No, it's just that let's not give each other's real name." "You mean let's lie to each other?" he asked. Oh, he's frank, she thought. But fake names and fake identities had been her entire life. She should not be changing any of that just because she was experiencing puppy love, right? "Well, you make it sound so bad. But don't you think sometimes it's easier to be your real self with people who doesn't really know you? Like, it's also easier to talk and express yourself to a stranger because you know you won't be judged?" He paused for a short time and agreed. "Okay."
I am Shoto from UA.
"But that seems like your real name," she complained. "It's not. Why would you think it is?" "Well, because for someone who just got the idea now, you gave a name way too fast. You didn't think. Like saying, 'My name is Shoto' is the most natural thing for you." "It's up to you if you think that's my real name. So, what should I call you?" "Hey, boy!" An old man yelled from the fruit stand nearby. Kazumi walked towards him. "Hello, Kudomono-san." You're taking a bath in the rain again, huh? And you even rubbed your habit over to this innocent young man. Kazumi smiled while scratching her head in guilt. My granddaughter will celebrate her birthday. I need you to polish my shoes again, he said as he bent down to get his shoes already packed in plastic. Give me a discount this time, okay? He added. You can count on it. I'll give this back to you tomorrow morning. Kazumi took the shoes. She then went back to walking with Shoto along the back alley. The flower shop I work for is just around the corner. I could lend you one of my hoodies if you're alright with that. Okay. When they finally reached the back door of the store, she urged him inside, gave him a towel, and asked him to wait as she went inside her room. Why did I bring him here? And now I'm even lending him one of my clothes. She panicked as soon as she closed the door. She inhaled and exhaled. She grabbed the gray hoodie that she only wears during cold nights because it was bigger than her usual oversized hoodies. When she opened her door, she was not prepared on what she will see. He had taken his shirt off already and was drying his shoulders and torso with her towel. Don't blush, damn it, she thought as she tried to breathe. He thinks you're a boy, and boys don't blush over half-naked boys. But man, why is he so ripped? Is that it? He asked and reached for the gray hoodie. He looked at her, but did not move to dress up. She looked at him and was just frozen. Why is he looking at me with such soft eyes? And am I imagining it? Is there a slight blush over his cheeks? Why won't he move away already and dress up? Are you still lending me the hoodie? He asked and tugged it lightly. Oh, yeah. She realized she was still clutching onto it. She turned her face away as she blushed even more. This is so embarrassing, she thought. I'll wait for you outside, she said, and went out so she could breathe. I'm just at the third alley of that street. She heard him say over the phone, most likely telling his driver where to pick him up. When he hung up, he faced her and said, I haven't been seeing you at Fujiya Hospital. Yeah, my weekend schedule changed. I deliver flowers there in the morning now. The street where I saw you biking earlier, is that your new regular route? Yep, she replied. Then we could still bump into each other then, every 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he said. Kazumi smiled. I would love that. Well, at least that's what the real her would have said. But of course a bro shouldn't reply like that. So instead she said, That's cool. Cool. The casual and slang reply did not fit his personality, but he really sounded so cute, she thought. A short honk sounded from the main street. His car and driver were already there. Hey, Kazumi said before he left. Between the two of us, you could call me Kazumi. He then stretched his arms for a handshake. Nice meeting you, Kazumi. She shook his hand and replied, Nice meeting you too, Shoto. She smiled as she watched him leave. Her mother had always called her Boo, and all others called him boy or young man or whatever new name her mother would come up with whenever they get to a new place. And now it's Sugimoto Hinata, the new name she had been carrying since she got to Tokyo. But today, for the very first time, she heard someone say her real name, and it sounded cozy and homey. She sighed. What has she gotten herself into? What is this two-toned boy doing to her? And why did she give him her real name? She was a tiny bit unsure, but at the same time truly happy. She could not bring herself to give him a false name. Her only consolation was that Kazumi was a gender-neutral name. She may be playing with fire and might end up regretting this later on, but she decided not to worry for now. She felt like spoiling herself by letting the feeling of happiness linger. Besides, it's not every day that she gets the chance to walk under the rain with a boy named Shoto.
In the moment, carried away from who you are.
Watch out! As soon as Shoto heard it, he ran and let out his eyes to stop an incoming truck. Unfortunately, he was 12 inches too late as he saw the truck bumper hit the person who just saved the kid from being ran over.
I don't understand. My eyes should have stopped the blaze.
He rushed towards the person that got hit to check for any injuries.
Are you hurt at all?
The truck still hit you. Do you feel any pain? He stared at a pair of red eyes that looked shocked from the accident. That's better than an unconscious and blank pair of eyes, he thought. Before he could get a reply, other people had rushed towards them. Hey boy, are you okay? They said. Of course I'm okay. What are they talking about? The victim he was holding stood up slowly and said, Yes, I'm fine. What? Shoto's eyebrows wrinkled as he looked at the incoming crowd and back at this person who responded after being called boy. Yes, she's wearing boyish clothes, and her hair was probably short as he could only see little of it peeking out from her cap. She may look like one, but she definitely was not a boy. Is the little kid okay? He heard her say. Did she hit her head so hard for her to actually think she was a boy? He thought, still trying to understand the situation. But before he could ask her further, she grabbed her backpack. He felt the hem of his shirt pulled as it got entangled with the zipper of her bag. On her second pull, she was successful on freeing her bag, but around 2 inches of his shirt got torn. He then saw her squeeze herself out from the crowd that had slowly gotten bigger. After a few minutes, the paramedics and police came to sort out the accident. It didn't take long, since no one filed a complaint, and the truck driver, despite feeling guilty, was not really at fault. He was still wondering who that girl was, but as soon as he reached the Fujiya hospital, his thoughts completely focused on what's about to happen. The UA Sports Festival just concluded, and today, he will be facing his mother for the first time after he got his scar on his face from her.
Oh, Barry, no! I'm so sorry, Shoto! What have I done?
His father's hunger to create a child that can be the #1 hero had driven her to the edge. There was no choice but to bring her to this institution for psychological and emotional therapy. He hated his father for it, and vowed to be #1 in the future without using his flames for battle. Shoto felt anger growing inside him whenever he thinks of his father, so he took a deep breath and tried to release some of that anger. When he straightened his shirt, he remembered the torn bottom part. He felt a bit irritated. This was the first time he was meeting his mother, and his shirt was looking like this. He sighed and tucked the side of his torn shirt in his pants and walked towards her room. He was at the train station going home and was remembering his battle with Midoriya and Bakugo during the tournament, which led him to finally visit his mother. They both ignited the fire on his left hand. His talk with his mother a week ago was very liberating. There was still a pile of things to fix with his family, but it felt like a heavy boulder had been lifted off his chest. Excuse me, excuse me. His senses suddenly perked up. He knew that voice. He did not need to see her face to know it was her. The train doors were already closing, and some of the people in line had already backed away to wait for the next train. But this girl had other plans. He felt her shoes stepping on him and her running past him. She swept in sideways to the closing train doors. She and the bouquet of flowers he was holding almost did not make it. He stared at her behind the closed glass doors as she exhaled, feeling proud of herself for making it inside. As the door finally locked, he watched her turn and her eyes widened as it met his. He really waited for her to look at him. And as the train started to move, he kept his eyes glued on her as she leaned on the glass to stare at him right back. He never thought he'd see her again. So much had happened to him that week, both in school and on his household, that he had almost forgotten the truck accident. And now here she was. He looked down and saw his white shoe covered with the dirt of her shoe sole. He shook his head as he remembered his torn shirt, which she had caused as well. She was a walking disaster. He noticed right next to his shoe was a small dedication card. It must have fallen from the bouquet when she squeezed herself into the crowd. He picked it up so he could return it. As he entered the next train, he remembered her face plastered on the glass door staring at him. She definitely gave the look that she remembered him. She was a very stimulating girl. Why would a girl pretend to be a boy? His world was very one-dimensional. He grew up with not much interaction from other people. He probably was better off talking to a gym equipment rather than to a stranger. So the oddity of her situation was something new to him. The next stop was also the final and only stop for the rail that they took. He analyzed the exits available there, trying to think one step ahead as to what direction she would be going when she gets off. If he was able to predict it, then there was a chance he'll reach her. He wanted to put his learnings from school to a test. If he was trying to catch a villain, then he must anticipate her next move. But this girl was not a criminal, and catching up to her at the next station was not a feat at all. Before the train even halted fully, he already saw her waiting at the train stop. She was not even making it a challenge. As soon as he got out of the train, she approached him. Shoto was about to give her the card she dropped, but he was not prepared when she knelt down and started bringing out shoe cleaners from her bag. "It's okay, you don't have to." He tried to stop her, but his surprise turned to annoyance as he saw his sneaker getting dirtier. "I said it's okay," he said as he tried to lift her up by her left elbow. "Ah!" she moaned. Her bruised left elbow had not fully healed yet from the truck accident a week ago.
What's wrong?
"You did not have your arm checked? It's been a week," he said in disbelief, thinking she was being irresponsible for leaving it unattended. He sighed again, remembering how he failed that day. It was a simple accident, and he was not able to prevent it.
Apologies.
"I was late. I was not able to stop the truck on time." "Are you crazy? If it weren't for you, I would be a pancake by now." Did I hear her right? She called me crazy? And what's with the pancake? He thought. "I'm not crazy. Maybe you're the one who's crazy bringing up pancakes when we are discussing the accident last week." "Huh?" She paused for a moment and then explained what she said. "So you were thanking me?" he asked. "Yes, I was thanking you, and I'm sorry for just saying it now. I should have said it right after you saved me." Her phone suddenly rang. It must have been about the flower she was holding, because the next thing he knew, she was sprinting away already. "I need to go." "Thank you again, so much. I hope I could pay you back someday, somehow." She waved and ran away. "Oh, and I'm sorry about your torn shirt and your shoe." "Wait, you dropped this." Shoto gave her the card. "Oh, you really are a savior. Thank you," she said and left. He watched her, finally leaving him at peace.
June of the same year.
Shoto had been visiting his mother every afternoon of weekends and sometimes weekdays in Fujiya Hospital. As he paused in the lobby to straighten his polo shirt, a person bumped into him. Logbooks fell to the ground, and what looked like a last bite of onigiri came flying onto his chest. "I am so sorry." It was that rascal again. Is she going to keep on ruining all my clothes? She took out the napkin from her pocket and started wiping his shirt, making the stain even bigger. "It's you again," he said. She slowly lifted her head and stared at him in surprise. "Didn't you know that eating is highly discouraged while walking in public spaces?" he told her. "You are right, but it's noon and I still haven't eaten breakfast," she started to explain. "Then wake up earlier."
You were woefully unprepared.
He cut her off, not interested with any excuses. Her apologetic face suddenly smiled at him and she twisted her left elbows in a weird dance moves. Got that. But look, my elbow is healed. He looked at her, confused. Why is she dancing all of a sudden? After a few minutes, her happy smile turned into a pout. She then waved goodbye. After taking a few steps opposite her way, he turned to look back. She continued to walk towards the exit, and for some reason, she did that strange dance move again. He gave her another confused look. Not only was she an annoyingly walking disaster, but a lunatic as well. As she exited, he heard the security guard wave her goodbye. See you tomorrow, boy! Again, he found it unbelievable that she would pass as a boy. Even her voice sounded like a girl. The way she talked, though, was not the same as how his female schoolmates in UA would. Hers was more casual and uncaring, like I will say what I want to say kind of tone. He went to stop over the toilet to wash off some of the soy sauce on his shirt before going to his mother's room. For the coming weeks, they would most often run into each other in the hospital lobby. Shoto calculated that she normally comes out at noontime, so he would come in a few minutes late or much earlier just so he could avoid her. But somehow, they would still meet every single day that he went to the hospital. The good thing, though, was the rascal seemed to know that she had damaged a couple of his clothes already because she would not go close to him. But she would still make her presence noticed by waving at him vigorously and exaggeratingly show that she was far away from him. And she always had that ready smile for him, to which he felt a bit kinda taken aback because it's very spontaneous and sincere. By July, he searched the lobby to check what path he should take to avoid her. He was surprised that she was not anywhere on sight. He proceeded freely to the lobby. The week after that, he still did not see her. He waited for 10 minutes. Then 10 became 15 minutes. His waiting turned to confusion on why he was even waiting in the first place. He shrugged it off and went up. That week in school, he was called at Principal Nesu's office. The winners of the UA tournament were each given a top secret mission. When he entered the principal's office, his father and his sidekick Burnin were there.
What do you want?
He asked him. Seeing his father made his blood boil. But Principal Nezu went straight to the point. Let me answer that for you, young Todoroki. Your mission is tagged as red and classified, so an involvement of a pro-hero agency is required. Shoto's back stiffened. Red and classified. That sounds dangerous, and he liked it right away. He'd be able to show his father more how far he had gone with his ice abilities. You will handle Project Flower, Principal Nezu continued. You will get all the information you could from this person. Data of the past, present, and future. He then gave him a folder. Shoto rewinded his words in his head and asked incredulously,
Now wait a minute.
Get information? Like do a stakeout? That's not hero work at all. Heroes are supposed to be in the front line. Do battle. Fight. Not stakeout, young Todoroki. Rather, be more involved. Befriend the subject. Know everything you could. Get information not available in the system. Get personal. Principal Nezu said. Shoto's eyebrows knotted. I am going to be the #1 hero. I am taught to get physical, not personal.
We're not here to be each other's friends.
Isn't this supposed to be a pro sidekick's work?
Shoto!
Endeavor tried calling out his son. This must be your idea, punishing me for not using my flame in the tournament, he told his father. Anger was brewing inside him. This special assignment can only be successful if done by a teenager. Principal Nezu intervened calmly. I requested you because this needs attachment to the subject near your age. But at a crucial time, detachment should be swift. Your personality of fair-mindedness and objectivity will come very handy. Shoto's chest was still heaving with annoyance, but he was in no position to defy any orders from Principal Nezu. He opened the folder he was given. It contained one picture. This girl? He almost yelled, looking at the rascal's wide red eyes. It was a stolen shot where she was riding her flower delivery bike and she was smiling wildly as usual. Bernard peeked behind his shoulder. That's a boy, Shoto-kun! Todoroki sighed and glared at her. Even Bernard cannot see her real gender. Her name is Sugimoto Hanata, Principal Nezu said. So, that was her name. Shoto checked the folder again. There were no other contents. That's all? Just this picture and a name? Yes, Principal Nezu replied. First, this intel only came in last night, so very minimal information is available. Second, it is best that you start with nothing, so getting to know her will come out more sincere. Do it in a proper facing. This is not an urgent task as of now, but this is very important. Quality of the information is what we expect. Shoto wanted to resist the task. They said it was not urgent anyway. But as he went to visit his mother on that weekend, he reached the realization that this was something he just had to face. He might end up failing his hero course just because of this stupid project. Then again, this was the third week that he had not seen her in the hospital. He felt relieved on the first week, then a weird feeling of looking for her on the second week. But now on the third week, and getting his new mission, he felt annoyed. He frowned as he waited outside the hospital. It was already 1 o'clock. He waited for a few more minutes, but still, she had not exited. He should start investigating the flower shop she was working at. Yes, he'll do that after his visit with his mother. It was good timing too, since his father's driver was with him today. It would be easier to search around the city. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he bid his mother goodbye. He went to their car and asked their driver, "Do you know any nearby flower shops here in Tokyo?" "There's quite a lot, Shoto-kun. Is there a specific flower you want to buy?" "Not really. Can we just drive around some of it?" Shoto said. They drove around various flower shops where Shoto would go down and check if there was any sign that she was working there. By 4 o'clock, it started to rain, and it irritated him. This really was no hero work. He wanted to go home already. "Let's just check one more shop, then let's head home," Shoto said. When they turned the corner, he finally saw her. She was biking under the rain, and she was wiggling her ride left and right like she was making her bike dance. She had no raincoat, but she still had her cap on. Her face was semi-lifted. She was intentionally letting her face catch the rain. What is with this girl? First, she almost had herself hit by a truck. Then she almost got squeezed by train doors. She walked without looking and bumped into people. And now she's going to make herself sick. "Please follow that girl on the bike and ask her to pull over," Shoto asked the driver. "What girl?" Shoto groaned. Does she have an illusion quirk where she could really deceive everyone? "That one in the blue hoodie," Shoto pointed. The driver did as instructed. He honked at her first to get her attention, but she only waved her hand and urged him to go past her. He honked at her 2 more times until she finally turned and yelled, "What is your problem?" "Could you pull over?" Shoto's driver asked her. Shoto took out an umbrella and went out of the car. "I can go home from here." "Oh, I have nothing else to do. Just ring me and I could pick you up after," he replied, then drove off. Shoto then ran towards her and covered her with his umbrella. "Don't you have a raincoat?" "I do." "Then why?" Instead of answering, she took his umbrella and closed it. Now they were both being drenched under the rain. What? He started. Her hands were too fast and he wasn't expecting her to do that. But he did not want to walk in the rain. He wanted his umbrella back. She smiled at him and said, "Just enjoy it." She got down from her bike and started walking. She urged him to follow him. He sighed. Befriend her. That was the mission. The faster you get through this, the faster the mission ends. He encouraged himself. They walked for a couple of blocks, and he noticed that they walked leisurely in the middle of people rushing to get off the rainy street, and those without umbrellas looked irritated as they searched for some shed. But she told him, just enjoy it. As much as he wanted to deny it, the walk was slowly becoming pleasant. It was like doing meditation, wherein the sounds around you slowly fade, the people and the vehicles becoming a blur, and you become more aware of yourself. The rain felt cleansing and rejuvenating. "You do this every time it rains?" he asked her. The rain had mellowed down and they were walking along an alley. "Nah, it's just more worth it if it's raining cats and dogs like today."
Wait, what are you talking about?
Cats and dogs? They're back with figures of speech again. He did not research idioms and metaphors as he never thought that going undercover will be part of being a hero. And honestly, he had not been talking to many people, much less people his age, to be updated with the current slangs. She smiled at him and immediately explained, "Yeah, it means a downpour of rain." She then started to give him the origin of the statement, which he found enthralling.
Very clever.
He was also a bit surprised. Not that he did not see her as smart, because for one, he knew that she was a street smart. But he did not take her as a reader, which she obviously was one, most especially when she started talking about mythology. He should not forget to add this detail to his report. "Oh, I'm sorry. I have a tendency to talk nonstop, especially on boring stuff." "It's not boring," he replied quickly. "Talk some more. Give me more information to report," he thought. They continued to walk until the rain finally stopped. "You know, we've never really introduced ourselves to each other," she said. "Finally!" Shoto thought. He had been wanting to reach that level of familiarity so he could start delving in with deeper questions. So he hurriedly started. "My name is—" "Wait!" She raised both of her hands to stop him from talking. "What? Is this another one of the word games?" He got confused. Did he miss something? She chuckled. "No, no, it's just that let's not give each other's real name." "You mean let's lie to each other?" "But don't you think sometimes it's easier to be your real self with people who doesn't really know you? Like it's also easier to talk and express yourself to strangers because you know you won't be judged?" He paused and thought
That's not it at all, this interesting wording. It suggests there is something that you're not supposed to talk about.
that maybe that had something to do with why she dressed as a boy. But she would not know anyway if he was giving her his real name or not. All the more it would not matter as soon as Project Flower gets completed. "Okay,
I am Shoto from UA.
but that sounds like your real name." "It's not. Why would you think it is?" "So, what should I call you?" He wondered if she would be giving him a real or a fake name. He waited in anticipation. "Hey, boy!" an old man yelled from the fruit stand nearby. Shoto's excitement dropped to the ground. He closed his eyes, quite irritated. Boy, again? It's getting tiring for him. Are all these people really blind? The old guy gave her shoes for polishing. Most likely, it's another of the things she does for a living. He suddenly remembered his white sneakers that she smeared with black shoe polish. Why were her parents letting her do all these things? He remembered the first time he saw her at the hospital lobby. She looked like she was juggling with schoolworks too. His report's going to be soon filled out. Does this girl even rest? She brought him to the flower store she was working at. She gave him a towel that went inside a room under the stairs to get a hoodie which she said she would lend him. He took off his drenched shirt and patted his face and upper body dry. He heard a gasp and saw that she came out already and she was holding a gray hoodie. "Is that it?" he asked. He reached for the hoodie, but she would not let it go. He looked at her and noticed that she was blushing furiously. In school, many costumes would show parts of their bodies. Getting them ripped off during training was a normal thing too. But he was not in school now, and her blushing over his naked top was making him a bit embarrassed. "Are you still lending me the hoodie?" He tugged it lightly again. "Oh, yeah, I'll wait for you outside," she said and hurriedly went out. He took that moment to also call his father's driver as he went out of the back door. After he hung up, he faced her and said, "I haven't been seeing you at Fujiya Hospital." "Yeah, my weekend schedule changed. I deliver flowers there in the morning now." "The street where I saw you biking earlier, is that your new regular route?" "Yep." "Then we could still bump into each other then, about 4 p.m. "That's cool." "Cool." He imitated her reply, but he felt weird and totally uncool when he did it. A short honk sounded from the main street. He looked at his driver waiting for him, but he still had not gotten past the exchanging of names. How will he complete his work if he could not even get past level 1?
This is the first obstacle.
He needed to ask, so he took a deep breath, forget being awkward, and just ask. Before he could say anything, she called out, "Hey!" When he looked back at her, she continued, "Between the two of us, you could call me Kazumi." Kazumi. He repeated her name in his mind. It was very far from her registered name, Sugimoto Hanata. But it felt like it was her real name. Or maybe not. Kazumi was both a boy and a girl name. But it does fit her though. He stretched his arms for a handshake. "Nice meeting you, Kazumi." She shook his hand and replied, "Nice meeting you, Shoto." He then turned and walked back to the car. In the car, he finally exhaled all the tension that built up inside him. Talking to people really is not my thing. I hate this mission. Just give me villains to fight. That's what it means to be a hero anyway.
Seen somebody move like you before. There's something about the way you leave it on the floor. And now we're moving closer. Can't keep my